Good morning, dear friends, family, and patients. In my second live video, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics in my practice, stress management. To understand this phenomenon that's affecting most of us right now, and to understand that it's a natural process in the face of a pandemic, we must first understand what stress is. Often we don't realize that stress is a natural process, a defense mechanism to manage the dangerous situations we face every day. This is a mechanism we inherited from our ancestors in the form of what's called a defense alarm, a danger response, a survival mechanism which allows us to face these situations. We inherited this from our ancestors in their prehistoric form, when they had to face hunting animals, daily dangers, and wars among themselves. And this is a mechanism that we can adapt to. Let's look at the mechanism of stress. Stress is a normal bodily response that prepares us to defend ourselves and protect the integrity of our bodies. It puts us in an optimal state of mental and physical defense to either defend ourselves against an attack or run away by removing ourselves from the process. So we can confront, we can stay, or we can flee. Those are the body's two responses. This happens through the glandular system, or what's called the pituitary adrenal axis. And that's where specific hormones are secreted, the adrenal hormones. Among them are cortisol, adrenaline, and various other substances that prepare us, our entire body, the heart, circulation, muscles, to be in optimal condition to confront this emergency. These hormonal levels are what we call the body's stress response, because it makes us very alert, hypersensitive, and even irritable to a certain extent. And it's the correct way for our body to survive. Let's see what the mechanism is, what we can do, and why we're activating this system inappropriately. And that's what we call stress. This emotional tension I feel, this readiness to defend myself against imminent danger in my life, is what we call stress. Now, let's see what happens. Do you remember the story of the shepherd boy and the wolf? Well, let's draw a metaphor between the shepherd boy and the wolf, about the barren one. The shepherd boy is the alarm that could warn the rest of the shepherds that the wolf was coming so they could respond and defend their sheep. So the shepherd boy is the alarm, the one who warns, the intermediary. That's our mechanism. That's our nervous system. The danger is the wolf that triggers the alarm, and the village's response is the defensive alarm that our bodies create to protect us from it. Let's see what this story tells us. What happened? The story goes that the shepherd boy, wanting to feel important and strive for attention and comfort, would wake the village every night, warning them that the wolf was coming. And it happened many times. The villagers would wake up, arrive, and the wolf wasn't there. So the shepherd boy would say, not wanting to look bad, No, what happened is, he's gone. He got scared by the noise. Time passed, and the villagers stopped trusting the shepherd boy. And one day, when the wolf finally came and the danger truly arrived, the wolf ate the shepherd boy because the villagers hadn't woken up. Let's see what happens. That's what we do with our alarm system, because if we activate the alarm system every day, for example, when we're stuck in traffic and someone cuts us off and then makes an unpleasant gesture, disrupting our flow, that triggers it. When a boss corrects us in front of a group of co-workers where I feel criticized, that sets off the alarm. It sets it off in traffic. It sets it off when bills come due or when a check bounces, as has happened to me many times, or when a bank check bounces. That makes me furious. It sets me off. These outbursts of anger, triggered by these small, harmless events, set off the alarm as if the wolf were approaching, or as if someone were going to rob us and endanger my life and my family's. So the alarm keeps going off in that way. Then my system gets drained because we're depleting the battery reserves we have to activate the alarm. And the moment will come if we keep activating it. that it will be like what happened to the shepherd boy, and people don't get up afterward, and the soul doesn't have the capacity to defend the body. That's what's called adrenal fatigue. And adrenal fatigue, or adrenal drain, leads us to a state of hibernation, like our computer, where we become emotionally drained, we feel fatigued and tired, we have no reserves, and often we enter emotional stages of depression. And that depression stems from the feeling that I no longer have the answer, and I don't care what's going to happen. That's the result of repeated stress, without solutions and without control. So, what's the solution to controlling the effects of stress? Because stress itself is positive. It allows us to survive and prepares us to survive. Now, inappropriate stress repeated, when there's no danger, drains us and depletes our energy to such an extent that we have no response. How can we mitigate the stress reaction process? Well, the first thing we need to understand is how to recognize when we're in danger and not sound the alarm or call for help without a valid reason. We have to start discerning. Is this truly something that puts my life in danger? When I'm about to get upset in traffic, I need to calm down. When the boss says something to me, I have to think. Maybe the boss said this because I did something inappropriate for the work group, and they're doing it to try to prevent me from doing it again, not to humiliate me in front of my colleagues. So I have to avoid getting upset, getting angry at the boss. When a check bounces because I don't have enough funds, I'm responsible. Whatever the reason, whether they deducted more time from my pay or another check bounced, I'm responsible for it. I have to understand that nothing bad will happen, except that I'll have to cover that check, call the person and apologize, but let them know they have the money, that they should deposit it, or let me know so I can pay them. So, I have to avoid getting upset or becoming inflamed with anger toward my boss. When a check bounces because I lack sufficient funds, I am the one responsible. Whatever the reason may be, whether extra time was deducted from my pay or a check I received from someone else bounced on me, I am still the one responsible for the situation. I need to understand that nothing catastrophic is going to happen. The only consequence is that I will have to cover that check, call the person involved to offer my apologies, and assure them that they can count on receiving that money, either by asking them to redeposit the check or by having them notify me so I can write them a new one. That is the way to control that alarm of anger and frustration. There are some of us, human beings, who are more sensitive because our self-esteem, our sense of self-worth, is low, mine included, who flare up at the slightest provocation. As the saying goes, we are highly irritable. And all of this stems from a lack of confidence and a failure to grasp that no one outside of ourselves has any intention of causing us harm. The reality is simply that many people do not understand the proper way to communicate with us, and so they may appear to be criticizing our behavior. Therefore, the first thing I must do is identify. Is this situation dangerous, or is it not? Once I have done that, I can manage the situation by ensuring I do not trigger that alarm. How can I avoid triggering the fear alarm that activates my system? The simplest way, you remember that phrase Americans used so often, count to 10, is to count to 10 before losing your patience. Count to 10. There is a scientific rationale behind this phenomenon, as we have two cerebral hemispheres, the left hemisphere, which is the rational one, and the right hemisphere, which is the emotional one, and they govern two distinct systems. When fear is triggered, it is the right hemisphere that generates the emotional reaction, initiating a process that is irrational, almost animalistic in nature, and purely instinctive. So, I have to bring that emotional process under control. Do you know how I do that? By counting, by engaging my rational brain. So, The first thing I do is begin performing complex mental calculations, counting numbers, or counting my breaths. For instance, I inhale. 1. I exhale. I inhale. 2. I exhale. 2. I continue breathing in this manner, focusing my count on my breath. At the same time, I gradually calm my physical system because slow, gentle breathing soothes my autonomic nervous system. And that is precisely why yoga and other meditative practices are so beneficial. So, let's count the numbers. Let's rationalize. Let's breathe calmly and deeply, and exhale. We breathe in and out. We count those numbers, and we just keep counting. When we do this, when we put it into practice, the surge of anger that triggers the alarm begins to subside. We can make use of this. There are many techniques for it. It is actually quite simple. But the first thing I tell my patients is this. Look, in my interpretation of fear or anger, or whatever it is I perceive that the other person meant to convey to me, I must always keep in mind that I could be wrong. And do you know why I have to assume that I might be wrong? Because I have been wrong on many occasions in the past. It is something I later came to regret, and of which I feel ashamed, having reacted emotionally toward another human being in a way that showed them disrespect. So, remember, before getting upset, bear in mind that your interpretation of a perceived threat may be mistaken. Let us redefine the situation, breathe, and meditate, and, if we are religious or spiritual, let us also turn our focus to the religious figure who supports us. In the case of Christians, the figure of Jesus, and for Buddhists, the Buddha. And so we continue, in various forms. So, let us recognize that this figure is accompanying us, watching over us, and with the same patience with which he has treated us throughout the years. And with our own mistakes, let us strive to understand the mistakes of others. We are only human. Brother, I have shared with you some thoughts regarding stress that may help us navigate this situation in life, for we must hold fast to faith, hope, and patience. So let us join hands and form a chain of love, but let us not drift apart. We need to create a chain of support. So, let us build connections. Let us not break links by offending other human beings. And regarding separation, yes, we must separate physically and practice social isolation, but not spiritual isolation. Many blessings. Until next time. Thank you very much for listening.